Welcome, everybody. This is the Security Data Foundations webinar, and we will just be getting started now. Today, we're talking about data security foundations. I will hand it over to Jamie McMahon, our Chief Technology Officer, to start us off.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining. Really appreciate the time. We know that time is such a valuable asset, so you joining us today is much appreciated. As Betty mentioned, we are going to talk about cybersecurity from a data protection perspective, and we have George and myself here to do that. We do find that people tend to get more value if they have very specific things. So I saw a number of folks add some questions or some kind of what they're looking to get out of the session. So if you do have any questions, we'd love to hear them. Please use the chat. We have quite a large group today, so we'd encourage just throw it into the chat. I'll be monitoring that and help prep George and ask the questions as they pop up to make sure that each of you gets the value that you're looking for. My name is Jamie. I'm the CTO here at ProServeIT. I am joined by George, our principal consultant and the practice lead for our cybersecurity practice here at ProServeIT, and we're really excited to chat with you. Before we jump in, there's 4 things, because I know that sometimes this can get lost, and there's a lot of things that Microsoft offers now, and based off of the pre-questionnaire we sent out, we did want to make sure that everyone here was aware of what's available to them. So everyone that is here today will have the opportunity to participate in a threat landscape assessment from us. So that is at no cost obligation. And basically what we do is we come in and we assess your environment and help you identify any risks or areas that you might need to remediate or look into. So that's one. The second, we have a second offer that helps companies get up to let's call it a fast follower state as it relates to data protection. And there is an offer that we're tying to the people that are here in this webinar. So perhaps a good opportunity for folks here to take advantage of. The third, Microsoft actually has quite a lot of programs that have funding assigned to it that have certain eligibility criteria. And a number of the participants here meet those criteria. So we'll be making sure to reach out to you, each of you that meet those criteria and wish to participate or partake in those Microsoft programs. We'll let you know because they have the opportunity to fund a number of engagements on your behalf. And finally, we did see a lot of questions in advance tied to AI assessments, AI related to security. And we have been working with a lot of organizations now around getting up to speed, beginning their AI journey as it relates to executive security and training and helping them start that journey. So if any of those 4 things make sense, we will bring that up at the end. And this is the only salesy slide if you want to talk about that, but we did want to make sure you were aware of some of the opportunities that were in front of you. And with that, I will pass it over to George, who will take us through the agenda and into the security content.
All right, perfect. Thank you for the introduction, Jamie and Betty. Start off with the agenda for today. So first and foremost, we're going to do a very quick introduction on what is data security and why it matters in today's world. Then we'll talk a little bit about the key risks to data and the key risks to businesses related to data compromise. We'll then dive into some common scenarios and attack kill chain pretty much for a data breach within Microsoft 365, and also highlighting what do hackers do once they compromise your data. I'll then walk you through a demo from a hacker's perspective. So, as a hacker compromising your environment, compromising your data, what they can do with it, what they can see, so on and so forth. And then I can also demo some of the protection functionalities to help you protect against data compromise. I'll then highlight some of the features related to data protection within the Microsoft 365 solution. I wish I can go through every single one of those features within a demo, but unfortunately, because we're limited on time, I can at least highlight some of the top priority ones that you can focus on, leading to some of the recommendations after the fact as well. And then some of the ProServeIT offers that Jamie highlighted, we'll talk a little bit about those in more detail to see which one fits your organization and how ProServeIT can support you on your security journey. And last but not least, we'll go through some Q&A to answer any questions that you might have. But also, please, if you do have questions throughout this webinar, please mention them in the chat window and either somebody will answer them or somebody can read them out and we can eventually get those answered for you as well. All right, perfect. So what is data security? Now, first and foremost, we need to give it a definition. So data security involves protecting your digital data, first and foremost, from unauthorized access, corruption, theft, while ensuring that you have proper retention throughout its entire life cycle. Now, I mention this all the time, but security is not a problem that we're trying to solve. It's a risk that we want to manage. And how far you're willing to reduce the risk to a level that you're willing to accept as an organization. And there's no such thing as 100% secure. But how far are you willing to go to make it extremely difficult for hackers and bad actors, whether it's internal or external to your environment, to compromise your data, to compromise your organization and steal your data as well? Now, why does this matter? Now, first and foremost, a data breach can have both an internal impact, such as maybe losing your own sensitive information, losing your own proprietary information. It can have some operational disruption. Your users can't work anymore. There's financial losses. Those are all considered internal impacts to your business, as well as external impacts, such as your loss of your reputation, your client base, losing the trust within your customers. There could be some legal penalties related to regulatory non-compliance as well. So it's important that you as a business have measures in place to protect the data and the information that you store within your world as well. Now, what are some key risks to data? Unauthorized access being one. So whether they're attackers, whether they're inside folks within the company, gaining access to any type of sensitive information without proper authorization. With data exfiltration, whether that's sensitive data, corporate data being exfiltrated or stolen or transferred outside of your organization. You want to maintain access to all your data within your own environment and make sure that all the proper controls are in place to protect that data as well. Insider threats, whether those are your own internal employees, whether they're contractors that you've hired to work within your world, they could be misusing or they could be also leaking data to your competitors, to their own business. It's an insider threat that you need to have visibility into as well. Data loss and corruption. Now, obviously, some could be behind malicious intent. So data loss, somebody deleting your data, modifying your data. There could be just some corruption that happens. Something happened as you were saving your files that rendered your data useless. You need to make sure whether it's a cyber attack that you're protecting against or whether it's a system failure, that your data is still protected and maintained as well. Ransomware, that's a big topic. We see it time and time again, and it's one of the main key risks to data, where hackers encrypt your data and they demand a ransom to decrypt it. And there's really no, I want to say, evidence or criteria behind hackers giving you your data back. If it's compromised, you're just hoping that you pay the ransom and you get your decryption keys. Otherwise, you can pay and then still lose your data as well.
The content's not advancing, George.
Oh, not advancing? Okay, apologies for that. Thank you. All right, the next one is misconfigured storage. So it could just be some misconfiguration done within your SharePoint or your OneDrive environment. Weak access controls can also lead to data exposure. Maybe you have permission set to anyone in the environment that can gain access to your data as long as they have access to the link, which is extremely risky. And it is the default behavior within SharePoint unless you manually change it. Third-party access. Specifically, we're talking about unsecured third-party access. And that could be vendors or partners mishandling access to your data. Sensitive or not, the data belongs to you, and you want to make sure that you're protecting it as well. And last but not least, regulatory non-compliance. So if you do have some sort of compliance standards that you have to meet, whether it's GDPR, HIPAA, PCI for the payment industry, if you don't meet your compliance standards, obviously there's going to be some legal or financial penalties as well to your business. Moving on to some of the key risks to businesses related to data. How can a business suffer from a breach, especially related to your data? Now, first and foremost, I wanted to highlight financial risks because that kind of touches on every single one of the elements that we're going to talk about today. Now, costs from ransomware. Again, if your data has been compromised, hackers are demanding some sort of ransom in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency. It's typically in the thousands, hundreds of thousands, upon millions of dollars that you'd have to pay, depending on your organization, the amount of data that was compromised, how well known you are, your reputation. So that number can increase exponentially, as well as if you take time to pay, that number can also increase. Financial risks with regulatory fines. So if you have to be compliant with GDPR laws or HIPAA laws or PCI laws or whatever the case may be, there's going to be some fines related to those as well for you not meeting the minimum requirements. Then leading on to reputational damage. So loss of customer trust, negative press. Now, how many clients have vendors lost knowing that they've been hacked? If we take some of the known ones over the last few years, there's Equifax that was compromised, I want to say in 2017. Social security numbers were compromised, birth dates, addresses, all that was found on the dark web. There's Marriott, compromised in 2018. Passport numbers were found on the dark web, other personal details as well. There's the Kaseya attack that happened July of 2021, SolarWinds March 2020. So there's all these large name brands that have been compromised, and data have been found on the dark web. You, as a customer to those vendors, are you willing to maintain that relationship with them, knowing that they've been compromised, knowing that they haven't been taking care of the data that they're storing, sensitive data specifically stored around your information? Because all this data can eventually lead into identity theft as well. If you have your passport information, your address, your names, so on and so forth, there could be potential impacts to you as a personal user, even though this parent company was compromised. And again, a lot of organizations change vendors because they felt the pain of being hacked. A lot of money was lost, a lot of time was lost, and a lot of effort to deal with cyber attacks as well. Next one is operational disruptions. So the downtime from an attack. You can think of this as the time to restore your environment. So let's just say you do have all your backups in place. Your servers were compromised, they were ransomware, but you do have all your backups in place, which is great. But now you're still down, given that you have to restore your environment back to an operational state so you're able to get back in business. So that means people not working that you're paying for, they're paying their salaries to do work for you. That can somehow, some way tie into your financial risks as well. And now they're not working until all the systems are back up and running. And obviously, you're going to have to spend some time on resources just to fix what needs to be fixed after an attack. Then we get into the regulatory compliance. So again, as I mentioned earlier, some businesses are required by law to follow specific security and data protection standards, such as GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, and failure to do can result in fines, can result in lawsuits, loss of business licenses, so on and so forth. And the last one I want to highlight here is the loss of intellectual property, which you might consider as your crown jewels. If I want to give an example here, let's talk about KFC. Their top secret herbs and spices as part of the recipe. That recipe should be protected as much as they can with everything that they can. And that's their crown jewel. That's what makes them special compared to other restaurants out there. Aside from your crown jewels, what should also be considered crown jewels to you are your information, any customer information, your credit card details, your passport information, social insurance numbers, social security numbers, anything that's considered sensitive should also be protected. All right, so that just highlights just some of the risks that businesses can experience, each one having its own impact. I want to walk you through a scenario. All right, so this is considered AITM, which is adversary in the middle attack. So it's a type of phishing attack, if you want to call it that bypasses MFA. It steals your session cookies, they log in on your behalf. And it is something that we're seeing on the rise today within our SOC team. So we do see a lot of clients being attacked by adversary in the middle type of attacks. And then an OAuth attack. So an OAuth refers to, think of an authentication or authorization protocol between a web application or mobile applications connecting together. So rather than use a username and password to connect, use this OAuth method, whether it's through a secret, whether it's through a certificate, somehow, some way, two services are communicating together without the need of a user in the middle. Now, if you're to take this into consideration, let's just say this is a compromised network, something called island hopping, where a threat actor compromises a smaller or maybe less secure entity in a way to get into a larger affiliated organization that has a more secure target. So obviously, hackers know that this is a small organization. They probably don't have enough funds to invest in security versus this larger organization that has enough funds to invest in security. But one way into this larger organization can be through the smaller one. They leverage, obviously, the trusted relationship between the two organizations. So let's just say there was a successful phishing attack against this smaller organization. They've compromised them. Now, through something that we call, again, adversary in the middle type phishing, where they send you a link, and that link now is coming from a legitimate source, which is the company that you typically interact with, to the naked eye or to an untrained person, people that don't regularly do phishing trainings, they can easily fall for a phishing link that comes through. So they click on the link, they type in their credentials, and now the hacker not only has their credentials, but also has the session cookie that the user approved their MFA with, and now they're also logging in as the user bypassing MFA because it's already been approved, right? Now that they have the session cookie, they have the credentials, all they have to do is just paste the cookie into their browser and they walk right in. First thing that hackers typically do is they review your emails, they take a look at your content, add some sort of inbox rule if they're trying to steal your emails. They add MFA methods to maintain persistence. So that way, if they need to log in down the line, they at least have an MFA method themselves. And now, since we're talking about data security for this webinar, they also register a malicious OAuth app in your tenant under your name, and you approve the permissions. So think of this as going back to social media. If you download some social media platform, let's just say Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever application you have out there, it's going to request from you, hey, can I have access to your pictures? Can I have access to your camera? Can I have access to your contact list? All for their own reasons. If they need access to your pictures, obviously to post pictures. If they need access to your contact list, maybe to see who's on this platform, who's on this social media platform, and that way they can search, are you friends? Are you not? Should you add each other? It's the same thing in the Microsoft world related to applications. Again, not just Microsoft, but since we're just highlighting Microsoft technology today, this is a standard pop-up that you might have seen in the past where, hey, this application is requesting access to read your files, have full access to your files, maybe read your emails, send emails on your behalf. And if you don't have this controlled or regulated, users eventually click accept and approve permissions of said application. And then obviously once that happens, now the hacker has access to all your data using that malicious app. They can eventually sell your data, they can leak your data, they can delete your data, depending on what their motive is. And we'll go through one of these throughout the demo today. So now that hackers have compromised your data, what do they do with that data? First and foremost, they sell or they trade it. And a lot of times, stolen data is found on the dark web, or it's even shared with other cyber criminals as well. Right? Other cyber criminals do the dirty work for other cyber criminals. It just happens that way. People just want data. They'll find any means to get to it in order to extort the client, let's say, from money. They also use it for fraud. So again, because your sensitive data lives in clients' environments, they may commit identity theft. They may open fraudulent accounts, conduct financial fraud, some sort of fraud, because you need that sensitive information in order to do. They can also deploy ransomware, as we talked previously, to encrypt all your data and demand some sort of payment, some sort of ransom to restore your data. They can conduct additional phishing attacks where they can take some of that stolen information and help craft more convincing phishing emails to target you or others within the organization. They can also leak the sensitive information. So that could just be, hey, let me post this on the public internet for everybody to be able to download and see. And all this sensitive information or confidential information is available for everybody to see. Now, in certain cases as well, I know it's not listed on the slides here, but in some cases, attackers may delete the data or modify the data just for the sake of causing some sort of operational disruption to your organization. All right, on to the demo. So I'm just going to do a very quick demo here. Let me just stop the slideshow real quick. All right, so first and foremost, as we had just seen the application registration, I just want to show you real quick. So this is an example. I do have a demo tenant, and I'm using Adele Vance as my sample user in this case. I've created an application called Application to Steal Your Data. And you can see here all the permissions that this application is requesting. Users typically don't read this information. All they do is just click accept and off they go. They just want to use this application. Now, you can think of this application as anything also found on the web. So somebody decides, hey, you know what? This is a cool application that I want to use in my Outlook, or I want to use to connect to my SharePoint and OneDrive and do fun things, and do cool things. Have you reviewed the permission of what this tool is actually requesting to do? It's reading your files. It has full access to your files. Read all files that you have access to. And some of these relate to SharePoint. Some of them relate to OneDrive, depending on the permissions that you've provided. And all these permissions that you see here, they can edit or delete items. They can read items. They can maintain access. So even if you reset your password, again, this is an application that has access to your accounts, not your username and password. So even if you reset your password, it can still maintain access to your environment. And all people do is just click accept at the end of the day, not knowing what the ramifications are. As a Dell Vance, I've accepted the permissions of this application, and now I am just going to quickly show you what that application looks like. So here you can see the user consent. Here's the application that we've created. It has access and granted by, again, a Dell Vance. As a regular user who is not an admin, they've granted access to this application. Now that they've granted access, something that a hacker can see is a specific tool that we're using. In this case, it's called the Office 365 Attack Toolkit. Here it is. A Dell Vance have accessed and provided the hacker access to emails and files. Here's a sample of what Adele's OneDrive looks like. All right, there she is. There's purchasing information, employee engagement plan, inventory. There's a file called password1. Now, hackers, obviously, one of the things that they look for are passwords. Are there any passwords stored within this person's SharePoint or OneDrive environment? So one thing that you're going to see here are the last 10 modified files. Forget about that. I'm just going to search for the keyword password. And there it is. It found 2 files that Adele Vance has access to that contains the keyword password. Now this one's obvious because the word password is in the file. And I can download the file and view it. I can, since I have access, I can eventually do that. There it is. Opening it up, and you can see it has just some random passwords. Password1, password123, these are all my passwords. Now, there's also a book Excel file. Now, if I go back to my OneDrive here, there's no reference to any passwords in this name here. But if I open it up, you can see that the keyword password does show up numerous times within this Excel file. So one thing that hackers do, again, is they search for specific keywords as part of their attack, whether it's a password they're after, maybe they're after payroll. So if they search for the keyword payroll and they find something there, maybe payment, maybe credit card, whatever sensitive information that they're looking for, they can eventually look for that. And they can also search through the emails. Honestly, don't know what emails are in here, but if I just type MAR, you can see here, news you've missed, Northwind acquisition details. So maybe this is interesting for a hacker to know that there's some sort of acquisition happening. They can view the email and view the contents of the email and eventually plan their attack, whatever their next step is. Right? And it tells you here where this information can be found as well. So again, I've maintained access, and you can see here, every 30 minutes, it refreshes the token for Adele Vance so that we can maintain access into the environment, into the Adele Vance's account. And this is completely hidden from the user's view. So going back to my admin console here, I'm going to go to the properties. You're going to see here that this application is not visible to the users. So unless an administrator comes in here and takes a look at all the enterprise apps, this is a demo tenant, so you're not going to see a lot of the applications. If there's a large list of applications like this, it's going to go unnoticed unless you audit every single application that you have or take control on what applications you can consent to versus allowing users to consent. One of the mitigation techniques that you can apply here is Adele Vance wants to use this risky application. An administrator needs to approve it once they review what permissions it's requesting, rather than allow the user to approve it and review it themselves. All right, so this application to steal your data, if I was to go into the My Apps section, it's nowhere listed here. So there's no way that this user can see that they've accepted this permission unless an administrator goes in and reviews them. All right, so that's the OAuth attack, accepting an OAuth application that has access to full access to your emails, full access to all your files. We can search through your files, we can download the files, and eventually all this is done through our management console. Now, let's just say somebody did steal your information. They've stolen your content. What can they do? How can we protect the content? There's something called Microsoft Information Protection. All right, just gonna go back here. It's based on sensitivity labels. So can we apply a specific label to secure your content? So if a label is considered or labeled with, let's say, all employees highly confidential, then I only want all my organization's employees to open the document. Everybody else is blocked. So with that, I've created 3 files here, just as simple as creating let's just say a Word file. Let's just call this confidential employees only. And this lives in my OneDrive. Now I'm going to apply a sensitivity label to this one. Call it confidential all employees. All right. Now this is going to change the sensitivity of this file to only employees. If this file was leaked anywhere outside of the organization, nobody's going to be able to open it. All right, so I do have a couple of files here for demoing purposes, and I've already shared them internally and externally. So there's one called public document with the public label, meaning that it's meant for public consumption. Anybody can access this document and view it. There's nothing sensitive about it. And I've shared that with myself from this third-party tenant. And I've also shared another one called employee confidential, which has that same sensitivity as we had discussed earlier. All right, so confidential, all employees. Now this should mean only internal employees can open this document. So I've shared both of these files with my own ProServeIT account, as you can see here. I'm going to open this file, right? There it is. And now you can see, because this is labeled as public, anyone can open this document, even as an external entity. Now, I want to take a look at the other email that I've shared with myself. So this one is employee confidential. This is only internal employees of the Contoso environment can open it. I'm going to try to open it. And it's going to tell me I don't have permission to open this document because of Azure Information Protection. Now, again, this is all in OneDrive. But what if I was to steal that file and take it onto my computer? So there it is. Here's a file. There's the employee confidential document that I downloaded directly out of OneDrive. I'm going to open it up using the Word app on the computer, not via browser. It's going to tell me to authenticate. Now, if I authenticate with a user like Adele Vance that has access to the all employees label, I should be able to open it. But as a ProServeIT employee, if I try to log in and access this file, it will prevent me from opening it up because the encryption travels with the document itself. And regardless of how hackers or how bad actors or how insider folks share the content of this file, the encryption travels with the document itself. Somebody needs to authenticate with a username and password. I typed in my username correctly there. But eventually you're going to get an email, a pop-up that says, you're not signed into Office with an account that has permission to open this document. Sign into an account that has permission. So pretty much, I don't have access regardless of whether this file is in the tenant. If somebody steals this file, somebody accesses it somehow, some way, shared, intentionally, unintentionally, only internal folks can eventually access this document. And labels can be created for the different types of use cases, right? So whether it's the finance team, whether it's HR, it doesn't really matter. You can create the labels and apply the proper permissions directly there. Now, the last part of the demo I want to do is data loss prevention. So that's part of your sharing sensitive content. You want it to be blocked in its tracks rather than, even though that document did get shared, they might not be able to open it. But what if they do compromise some user, some account, and eventually find ways to open it? So eventually you want to try to block the email or block the sensitive content from being shared. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to type in a new email. I'm going to send this internally to Megan, and I'm going to send this to myself as an external user. I'm just going to say, this is my CC info. Below are the CC information with the expiration date and names. All right, now I'm going to use something here called dlptest.com. This is just a website that gives us some sample data for us to test our DLP policies with. I'm just going to take a sample, names, zip codes, credit card information, expiry date. I'm just going to copy that and paste it into my email here. And you can see this is not a properly formatted table. However, there are credit cards information here. There are the expiration dates. There's the zip codes. And you're going to see here that it's going to provide me some recommendations. They recommend the sensitivity label of this email to be changed. And because of the policies that I have in the backend related to data loss prevention, I'm going to click send here. Sorry, 1 second. All right, so there was supposed to be a pop-up, but I didn't get a chance to show it to you, but you're going to see here that this message was blocked because it doesn't meet the minimum requirements of you allowing to share the sensitive content via email. So the email was blocked and the recipients won't receive this email. If I left it a little bit longer, we would have seen a pop-up show up on the email itself saying you cannot send this email outbound, but at least our message did block it eventually. So this is data loss prevention in action, preventing sensitive information from being leaked out of your environment. And this is just a simple example with credit card information, but we can use any type of sensitive information, any type of health information, financial information, PII data, your own custom data, whether it's a specific keyword you're looking for, or whether it's some sort of 3 digits dash 2 characters dash 4 digits, it's some top secret number that you have internally. We can also apply the protection to those types of information as well. All right, so we've demoed how hackers create a fake application to take control over your data and maintain persistent access. We've also demoed how information protection and encryption travels with the documents. If somebody leaks the information, steals it, hackers compromise it, they won't be able to open it. And also, if somebody tries to share sensitive information, how it can be blocked before any damage is done. Back to the webinar. Now, what are some Microsoft 365 solutions that can help protect against data theft or data exfiltration? First and foremost, MFA, no-brainer. MFA every single account, because that just makes it a little bit more difficult for hackers to break through. Conditional access to govern how people access your environment. One thing I want to mention is if you apply protections such as only managed devices, let's say with Microsoft Intune, access your environment and can access your data, that reduces the risk level immensely, because not only hackers need your credentials, but they also need to have the device that is registered with Intune to be able to access your data. So that way personal devices are not able to access your information as well. Data loss prevention, as we had just demoed, preventing information from being leaked out of the environment in transit. Sensitivity labels and encryption, we also showed that with information protection, so on and so forth. One of the main ones that I want to highlight here is disabling consent to third-party applications, because that eventually prevents users from approving risky applications that request access to a whole bunch of information or a whole bunch of permissions. The other one I want to highlight is retention policies. Let's just say hackers eventually log in, delete all your data. At least with retention policies and lifecycle management, they're stored still within your environment, hidden from view, and can be recovered in case needed be. Right? And then obviously end user education goes a long way in protecting your data. Now for some recommendations. Something that I always recommend is a multi-layer defense strategy. And the way I explain this is, think of an onion and the different layers of an onion. So the first layer of the onion would be your credentials, your username, your password. How can we make it difficult for hackers to break in? If they've compromised your username and password, what is that next layer of the onion? That could be your conditional access policies. Maybe it's geolocation policies. You're only allowed to log in from this location, followed by maybe only managed devices are allowed access, right? So the more you get into, the deeper you get into the layers of the onion, the harder it is for hackers to break in. Applying data loss prevention policies as well, encrypting the data, as we had shown you in the demo, regularly reviewing your policies and updating them to match current standards. Threats become more sophisticated with time, they become more advanced. Hackers find different ways to try to break in. Make sure that you keep up to date on all the different policies that you want to implement within your world. Simulate phishing attacks or even OAuth type attacks, similar to the one that we've seen today, where somebody can approve an application and educate your users not to do. One of the most important steps that you can do. All right, just to reiterate what Jamie had mentioned earlier on. So we do have multiple different options for your cybersecurity journey. First one is the threat landscape assessment. It is an assessment that helps us look under the hood in your environment, uncover gaps, uncover risks tied to some of the gaps within your Microsoft 365 environment on the tenant level, on a user level, and then eventually be able to present you back with a report on, here are the gaps that we're able to identify, here's what we would recommend you prioritize, and give you some specific use cases around the scenarios that we've seen as well. All right, within a week or so, we should be able to, few hours, we should be able to get the report generated, and then we can schedule some time within the week or so to present back all the information that we were able to identify. The next one is the Data Security Foundation engagement. So we have our current maturity at ProServeIT. How mature is your organization from a security perspective? And implementing the Data Security Foundation, I want to say, gets you to secure enough in today's world. Again, there's always advancements that you can make in the security world. It should never be considered a one and done deal. It's a journey. And especially for the folks that are going through their AI journey, data security is a huge one, because what access does AI have to your data? Who can see what kind of data within your world? So making sure that you have a prerequisite done as a data security foundation, you're properly protecting your data, can help you work with AI down the line as well. So this is an engagement that is worth 10 grand. We are providing a 40% offer until the end of April. So for those of you that are interested, please reach out to us, cloud@ProServeIT.com, and mention this webinar, and you'll be able to take advantage of the software as well. And we should be able to complete the implementation within a 2-week time frame. Also, the Microsoft funded security workshops. So you can take advantage if your organization is eligible to Microsoft funded security workshops. Our marketing team, they're actively reaching out to some of you folks that are eligible. If you do receive a message from us, please make sure you take advantage of these offers because it's complimentary. We could eventually apply some hardening controls into your environment, educate you on some of the security elements that Microsoft has to offer in your own production tenant. And depending on the workshop that you're eligible for, or maybe you're eligible for multiple workshops, whatever you're interested in, we can definitely take you on that journey and educate you on the Microsoft security features and functionalities. And last but not least, the AI Copilot Roadmap Workshop. So we do have an AI Copilot Roadmap worth around $8,500. Within a 2-week period, we'll be able to discover some use cases specific, custom to your environment by talking with our consultants, and can help you understand where does Copilot, where does AI live in your business? How can we help transform your business and utilize AI in a secure fashion? And also taking into consideration all the security elements tied around AI and Copilot within the Microsoft world. So that implementation is around a 2-week period as well.
Yes, I just want to thank everyone for joining. Great questions, great information, George and Jamie. And I just posted the link. I did post it up above, but may have missed it, for the AI and Copilot executive briefing sessions. These are for executives who want to spend a half day at an in-person event with Jamie. And we are coming to Chicago in April the 8th, Toronto on April the 29th, and Philadelphia in the Malvern area on Thursday, May the 8th. If you have further questions, feel free to reach us at cloud@ProServeIT, or you can also respond when you get the follow-up email. Great having everyone. Thanks for a great session, George and Jamie.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks all.